I'm the Health and Human Sciences educator with Purdue Extension in Knox County, Indiana, and we are here today to talk with you about air fryers. I just want to hang out here a minute and give folks a chance to chime in and join us for this event. So while we're waiting, if you could go ahead and put in the chat box, do you have an air fryer? And if so, what kind is it? Is it an oven type? Is it a basket kind? What do you love about it? Oh, and I guess while we're waiting for folks to chime in, this would be an ample opportunity for me to thank my background persons. I wish I could turn the camera around and shine the light on them. Cheryl Castleman from Sullivan County and Andrew Hayes from Gibson County coming up to be my film crew today. So thanks to them. Working with Extension is always an awesome experience with all the teammates you get to interact with every day. So we'll give folks just a few more minutes and go ahead and type in the chat box there. Do you have an air fryer? If so, what kind is it? Is it oven type or is it more of a drawer or basket kind? And they're in the background trying to tell me if we are circling the globe of Facebook yet. So I'm not really good with awkward silences. I wish I had a really good joke to tell you right now, but I don't. And thankfully, my man Andrew in the background is saying we are circling the globe right now. So let's go ahead and get started. I have my mammoth of an air fryer here. This is an oven style. Opens up. It really has quite a large capacity, you can see, which is one of the things I love about it. So what is an air fryer? It's basically a mini convection oven. So what is a convection oven? It circulates, it has a fan to circulate the hot, dry heat that you would find in an oven, right? But because of that circulating heat, it actually cooks at a higher temperature and it can cook more quickly, which is another perk of having an air fryer, is that it does cook more quickly. And that can result in that outer edge of our food getting that crispiness, which is why they equate it to fried foods. But we'll talk more about that later. So there's a couple of things that you should know about an air fryer if you're looking to buy one. Number one is, what kind is it? You can see this one is quite large with the oven type. I went ahead and opted for this style for my work just because I can use it for more things. For example, if I'm doing other types of cooking demos with my programs. And it has these shells, which you can see are like a wire mesh, so the air, it provides ample airflow with these. Another thing you want to think about is the heating element, which is going to be on the underneath, and this one actually has a protector guard, which is kind of tricky to pull out. But when you first get your unit, you want to pull that out. You want to remove all your packaging because they may have even insulated the and cushioned the heating element. So you want to take all that out. You want to give it a good wipe down, and then you want to go ahead and run it. Now, my particular user's manual did not instruct me to do this, but in my research I found others that did, and I can tell you why, and that is to run it empty the first time to eliminate kind of that chemical smell that's going to come off of it the first time you use it. So I did definitely notice this, not even just the first time, but probably the first 3 times I used this. So something to think about, giving it a try. Go ahead and doing that procedure when you first get your machine to kind of eliminate that. Now, it didn't do anything to my food. It just kind of smelled a little weird, which I was not completely comfortable with. But the other thing is this unit, things you'll want to think about if you're looking to buy one. This unit comes with a basket, so I can put my sweet potato fries or other maybe small vegetables that I've chopped up, and this basket is going to rotate like a rotisserie. It also came with some skewers or kebabs, so you can make, if you have small pieces of meat and vegetables that you want to cook together, you can make like kebabs and stack them kind of crisscross style inside your basket, because the thing about getting that really crispy texture with your air fryer is maximizing the air exposure to the food. So you can't have it packed in there too tightly. It did also come with a basket that I can use in lieu of these oven trays, so it would just fit straight in here. One thing I did not particularly care about this model that you'll want to think about if you're going to buy one is the safety aspect, and this little handle that is intended to latch into this. And see, I can't even do it. It's kind of tricky, and I did not find that it was incredibly trustworthy. So, not a real big deal. Just opt for an oven mitt. So remember, this is an oven, it's cooking at really high heat, so we want to keep those mitts around. And then lastly, it did come with a large skewer for rotisserie a small bird, a very small bird, mind you. We're probably talking 3 pounds. So if you can find a 3-pounder, then I would encourage you to try it out, because that's quite a tasty way to cook. So I'm going to go ahead and move all this stuff out of the way. And I'm going to consult my notes here because I had so much I wanted to share with you. Oh, so another thing to think about if you're buying one is how much space is it going to take up on your countertop. This is quite large. I don't know that it's even the largest one that's on the market. There's some that's smaller, but I did actually went to the store and measured them all, looked up dimensions of various models, and they were all between 11 to 15 inches in width and in height. So you are looking at giving up a fair amount of cabinet space, counter space with this, regardless of the model likely that you're buying. So if it's something you're going to use, then great, but that might be kind of something to weigh against when you're buying one. Another thing is, how easy is it to clean? This one, everything is really easy to clean. It's got nice coatings, non-stick coatings on all the surfaces, so I haven't had any troubles with it, but I know if you look at reviews, you'll see some people make different comments about ease of cleaning, and so that's definitely a big con in my book, right? Nobody likes to do dishes longer than they have to. The other thing is the noise level. So this is quite noisy, I think, in my mind. It's at least as noisy as my 1000-watt microwave. So do you have a place where you can put it in your kitchen where it's not going to be burdensome to you in that way? Another safety issue that I want to point out at the get-go is also that the fan inside here that circulates that hot air that gives us that crispy texture, right? There's an exhaust in the back here, and so you want to be careful to keep this at least 5 inches away from any surface. So if you have it shoved in the corner of your counter, it would need to be pulled 5 inches forward and 5 inches over. So when you're using it, it needs even more countertop space than when it's stored away for future use. And so with that, I would just say, if you don't already own one and you really think you want to get one to try it, read reviews. Read them, read the good ones, then read the worst ones, then read a few in between, and then see what common themes are coming up and which pros and cons you can live with and which you can't, and then use that to make your decision. Price points also might be an issue. These run anywhere from $70 or $80 all the way up to $300. I saw some as much as $350. So again, there's lots of different variables to consider there. So we talked about running the unit empty first to eliminate that smell. So next we're going to talk about what foods we can actually cook in it, right? Let's get straight to it. But first I want to ask you in a poll. Well, let me back up. Cheryl, did anyone say what kinds of air fryers they had? Oh, nobody's interacting with me today. You're going to make me cry. Come on, guys. All right. So you can tell me this. What is your favorite food to cook in an air fryer? And while you were all anxiously waiting to reply to me, because you know I'm dying to hear back from you, and that's real, okay, I'll just tell you that pretty much anything you would normally deep fry, which I don't know a ton of people who still do that, because it's a lot of work in and of itself. You got to do something with the oil, blah, 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 right? It makes a mess.
We have a question.
I have a question.
So Katie wants to know, what brand of air fryer are you using?
So this is a Power Air Fryer Oven Elite. Here's my owner's manual. Always keep this puppy.
And Katie also says she likes French fries in the air fryer.
French fries. Homemade French fries or frozen French fries, Katie?
Okay.
So while she responds there, really anything you would cook in the oven, anything you would normally fry. When I was scouring the internet, because you can find anything on the internet, right? People would say, like, this can replace things that you would normally cook on the stovetop. It can replace your grill, things you normally cook on the grill. I don't know about all that, because I tell you what, I really love the flavor of some food coming off a nice charcoal grill. But, there's a time and place for everything, so you experiment at your will. So, our meats, our vegetables, even fruits, grains and breads that you can cook in here. You can buy accessories to bake bread.
Christina says she loves to cook salmon.
Salmon, yes.
In the air fryer.
In the air fryer. And Christina, can you share what is it different about using the oven versus using the air fryer that makes you want to cook your salmon, or that makes it better? And I'm glad she said that, because as a health educator, all the hype online, and even like the front of these cookbooks, look, we've got French fries, some other stuff that may or may not be that healthy. I don't want it just to be an alternative method for you to cook your nutrition level food, but I want it to inspire you to try new dishes.
How do cooking times compare?
How to cook, you know what, you're jumping ahead in my presentation here, Andrew. No, great question. So cooking times are going to be much more quick, and that is the one thing I do really, really like about an air fryer, because for a couple of reasons. One, it's smaller, so it takes virtually no time to preheat. Which, there's another poll. Do you preheat or do you not preheat when you use your air fryer? But it doesn't take very long to preheat if you choose to. And because it's so small, and with that air, the fan circulating that air, it cooks a lot more quickly. So if you want to adapt a regular recipe, you want to reduce your temperature by at least 25 degrees, maybe even as much as 50 degrees. So something that would normally cook at 425, we're now bumping down to 400. Or maybe even 375, and you want to reduce your cooking time by about 20%. So 20 minutes is going to go down to, 16 minutes. And you always want to, when you're trying new recipes, of course, be sure you're checking it at the lowest end of that time recommendation, so that you can get used to and adjust that recipe for your own unit. Because another thing we found, America's Test Kitchen did a really good review, and they tested multiple different units. And they found that every single one of them cooked slightly different at a slightly different time. So it's really important for you to pay attention when you're trying new recipes, to make sure that you've got it in tune with your particular model. And so what we're going to do today is make kale chips, but I want to back down, I want to slow up. I haven't even had that much coffee today, look at me go. My question for folks about whether they preheated or not, did anybody?
Someone said they preheat if they have time.
If they have time, okay. And there's a Facebook group that's all about air fryers, and they had actually posed the same question. There was like 400 and some people responded. I read as many as I could before my eyes fell out. And it was about a 50-50 split. So what I'm getting from that is that it matters maybe.
That was Katie, and then Katie also says she likes, I think she does frozen a lot. She's a mama of twin 3-year-old boys, so it's the time factor.
Oh, heaven have mercy, Katie. I have one 3-year-old boy, and he is enough for me. I love you, baby. So we're going to make some kale chips today. Kale is a really coming out popular as a superfood, right? It has lots of vitamins and nutrients in here. But it's not something people just pick up every day to eat, right? For one thing, I don't think folks necessarily know what to do with it. Well, you can just shred it like you would lettuce and eat it in a salad. I think it kind of reminds me of a taste of cabbage, just a little bit. Somewhere a mix between lettuce and cabbage. Or you can de-stem it, because these stems are very tough. You can eat them, however, they take a little extra cooking. But you can de-stem it, pop it on a plate in your air fryer or your oven, and voila, have kale chips. Now, here's another thing I looked up on the internet, because the internet knows everything, right? How to de-stem. And for every person who posted an opinion about how to destem, they all had different ideas. So really, it's your best preference, right? Are you too busy? Do you like things perfection? Go with your way. So my way is ripping a little bit on each end and boom. There was folks, and then you just shred it up. There's folks on there who will swear you should use a chef's knife so you don't rip it. And I suppose if maybe I was using this for a wrap or something where I wasn't going to tear it into pieces anyways, that might matter. But for the sake of this and not dirtying another knife, because Katie doesn't want to do any more dishes than she has to, right? Nor me. We're just going to shred it right off. No cutting board required, no knife required. Another thing about the air fryer is you want to make sure your pieces are fairly uniform so that they will cook evenly. That's the same is true even when you are cooking in the oven, right? So I did wash this before we came on camera, and it's still a little damp, so I just want to give it a nice squeeze with a paper towel to get some of that extra moisture off, because we want this to crisp up, right? We don't want it to steam. And so, also because I don't want a ton of dishes, and I don't have an adequate place to wash my hands in this facility, I am actually, instead of mixing it in this bowl, I'm going to put a couple cups in here and use this bag as my mixing vessel. Now, if I was at home, I would probably have just poured the oil straight in the bowl and used my hands to toss it. But for the sake of staying a little cleaner here, now notice I did not squeeze the air out of that because I want to have some room to kind of shake that up, let the oil really do its best to coat all those leaves, because this is what my seasonings are going to cling to, is that little bit of oil. That little bit of oil is also going to help the food product crisp up. That's kind of one of the things when they talk about air fryers are healthier, right? Here's an impromptu poll. How many of you actually use measuring spoons when you cook? I don't usually, but today I will, okay? Because Andrew and Cheryl might have to eat this to tell you guys that it's truly worthy, right?
Yes.
So we're going to go with a little garlic. And a little onion powder. We'll use a little bit less of that. And I will post the recipe that I am using in this event page afterwards, so that you can all have access to it. But when we were thinking about, and you do want, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. We always teach low salt, right? But I'm putting a lot of, we've got our garlic, our onion. I'm going to put a little black pepper in there. We need just a little bit of salt. Generally speaking, anytime a recipe calls for salt, I at the very minimum go half, sometimes less. In fact, I think I'm going to dump the rest of that right there because that was way too much.
Katie says you're not alone. She doesn't use the measuring either.
Doesn't use the measuring spoons. Thank you, Katie, for acknowledging. Now, let me clarify, if I'm baking, right, you gotta measure. That's like chemistry right there. But this kind of jazz, you can make it up to your family's whim, okay? And then I'm just gonna give it another shake, massage it a little bit to get the spices to adhere to the kale and to the oily. And so here's another thing about our cooking. Remember, we wanted to remove as much water as possible so that we would crisp them and not steam them. And the same thing goes when we're filling up our plates, right? Or our baskets or our trays, whichever model of air fryer you have, is that we want things to have plenty of room so that they crisp rather than steam each other. So this particular model, let's see if I can do this upside down. I hope you all are having fun laughing at me. It just slides in like an oven tray would. This has lots of preset functions I honestly don't usually use them. I just set my temperature, which for this particular recipe calls for 360 for 6 minutes. Oh, and you notice that it started on itself, so I gotta be on the ball here. I don't know if you can hear that. It is just a little bit loud. I think it's just the close proximity of my kitchen. It echoes off the walls a little bit, maybe is why it seems louder at home. But I'll tell you, we are talking about different models cooking at different times. So I looked up, let's see here, 4 different kale chip recipes just to compare like what they said temperatures. And every single one of them had a different time and temperature recommendation. So it really is about practicing with your own unit to get used to how it cooks. So while that's in there cooking, I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff off of my table. And let's see, do we have any other comments, Cheryl?
Not yet.
Okay. So browning, it's kind of the same thing as with our with getting it to crisp up. So we want to make sure we're moving all the excess moisture, maybe adding just a little oil. So maybe you have a spritz bottle, or maybe you're doing kind of the shake and coat thing like I did with the kale. Just enough to give it that little extra something that'll help crisp up when that hot, dry heat hits it. Now, do you have to add the oil? Not necessarily. It's gonna give it a little different browning appearance though if you do. So true or false, air frying really is healthier than what? What do they say? I mean, they say just say it's healthier. So what do you think of that motto? And so while you're all thinking of that, I will finish with my thoughts here. And other ways that you can do to get a good browning is to do an egg or a milk wash, depending on the type of food it is. Actually, turning down the heat is sometimes necessary. So if you're cooking something delicate like fish, you need to turn down the heat to give it time so that it doesn't the outside doesn't over crisp before it's cooked through. So something to think about there if you're having trouble. The American's Test Kitchen even recommended using honey or maybe some fruit preserves, but you want to be careful there too as well because they can burn in that high heat. So you're going to be sure to add those in the last few minutes of cooking, just long enough to get them browned. For your crispiness, you might think about different breading options. So panko breadcrumbs, just using crushed up corn chips, or experimenting rice cereal crumbs, experimenting with different things that your family prefers.
So Katie thinks it's true that they're healthier cooking.
They are healthier. So I will concede that it is healthier than deep frying. I don't actually personally know anyone who's still deep fry. I don't know anyone who owns a deep fryer, to be honest. Maybe it's because of the fact that I'm a health educator and people wouldn't admit to me that they get deep fried. I don't know. But so I just don't want folks to get a misconception that somehow because of this machine, if I put it in here, it's healthier, right? It's all about what we're putting into our unit, okay? If I cook these kale chips in my oven or in my air fryer or by another method, they're still kale chips, right? If I have some other food that's less nutrient packed, it's gonna be the same food, right? Regardless of whether I put it in my oven or in my air fryer. I'm not dissing air fryers. Like I said, I really love that they cook so quickly. This is going to really help me in my work and being able to travel and do food demos. But just, I always encourage folks to kind of read between the lines with some of our marketing that we have going on.
We have a question when you're ready.
Sure.
So Karen wants to know, did you find any information comparing an air fryer to a convection microwave?
Convection microwave. Karen, you've stumped me. What is a convection microwave?
Oh.
Now, I do own a convection oven that I owned. It's like a little, it's a tabletop. It's about the size of a large microwave. I owned this long before air fryers were ever thought of. It's probably at least twice the size of this. I really like it. Doing this class actually prompted me to get it back out and start cooking different things. Because again, it heats up more quickly. I'm like Katie, my kid wants to eat 3 minutes after I get home from work. I don't have time to preheat my oven, right? I can stick stuff in my little convection oven / air fryer, whatever you want to call it, and I can be on my way to dinner, hopefully. Did Karen elaborate on her?
Not anymore.
No. I would speculate the difference being that we're cooking with a heat source here, as opposed to a microwave cooking through microwave energy, right? In the differences in the way that those two things just cook by nature.
Crispiness.
I'd be interested to know if the listeners can hear.
Oh, yeah, Andrew wanted to know, can you guys hear how loud this is? Can you hear it very much? I feel like I've raised my voice to talk over it. No? But speaking of microwaves, that made me think that one of the last things I had on my notes to talk about was reheating tips. And so some of these models do have a reheat button or function. And so this would be useful for reheating things that you want to maintain that crispiness, okay? You want it to, you put things in the microwave and that fried chicken is not really crispy on the outside anymore, but you put it back in your oven, your air fryer, which requires virtually no preheating depending on who you ask, and you can heat things back up quickly without, I'm going to come around the table this time since I almost fell on my noggin the first time, trying to get the trays in there.
Katie said she could hear it.
And so I'm going to tell you that I made the same recipe like 2 weeks ago when I did this class, and it took way longer than 6 minutes, and now these appear. I just threw half of them on the floor. They're almost overcooked a little bit, maybe not, maybe just the perfect crispiness. So again, my takeaway from that is you really need to watch. So I'm going to let these cool down for like 3 seconds, and then I'm going to bring Cheryl and Andrew on camera, and they're going to taste them.
They smell amazing.
Yeah, I can really smell the garlic and the onion.
We need smell-o-vision.
Yes. And they really don't take long to cool down at all, because they're basically a chip now. In fact, I can probably try one now without even cool off.
Karen said she has a convection oven and a convection microwave, which is why she was curious. So we'll have to research that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You know what? I take that back. They turned a little brown. They look like they're overdone, but that was perfect crispiness. A little bit of garlic in that bite.
They smell really good.
So maybe I should have done the hand massage method so that I would have distributed the spices a little more evenly. But last thing I want to talk about, so if you guys have any burning questions, you can put them in the chat box now. I just want to make sure to emphasize food safety with these. So especially since these are all cooked kind of differently, and you can get recipes for the same food from 5 different places, and they have 5 different cook times just because the units are all so different. Please, please, please use a food thermometer to check the temperature to make sure that it's done. You can't tell just by looking at a food product if it's finished cooking. That's really, really important for our animal-based products like meat and eggs. And then the same thing when we're reheating. That we can't just push the reheat button and let it go and assume that the food's done, because this machine is just pre-programmed to a certain amount of time at a certain amount of temperature. It doesn't know if I'm putting 1 chicken thigh in there or 5 to be able to differentiate that. So it's really important to use a food thermometer to know that you're cooking to the right internal temperature. And then also because these don't cook terribly a large number of servings at a time, you're not likely going to have leftovers, but if you do have leftovers, they need to be cooled to room temperature within 2 hours and put in the refrigerator immediately after that for proper food safety. So that is my kind of little plug there. And were there any other questions that came up? So the last question I get a lot is, where can I get recipes, Tanya? And so my advice is to go to the library, check out books, or go to their online system and borrow some from your interlibrary loan system. That's what I have done to really find a lot of neat recipes. And of course, there's a lot of different Facebook groups that are committed just to air fryers, people that are really in love with their machine that can give you a lot of advice as you go if you're just starting out. So if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and sign off, and we will look forward to seeing you next month where Amber will be talking about cooking in cast iron. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.